Good morning and welcome. I'm actually hyper excited to be leading this conversation, and thank you for being here with us today, Mati. Yeah, great to have you here, Rafał. You're great Polish, European, and global entrepreneurs, and let's start with I always say it's great to hear about a company from its founder. So, as many people know what you do, for those who may not know you that well, what actually you build, who relies on it, why does it really matter right now? Can start with you, Mati.
Bartosz, thank you. Thanks for being here. Great to. Already in the morning when we came here, the energy is very clear, and it's always good to feel that energy and excitement for what we can build all together. So, as a quick introduction, I'm Mati. I'm one of the co-founders of ElevenLabs. As the company, we started in 2022, but it almost feels like we started 15 years ago. I have a lack of knowing my co-founder for 15 years. We became best friends in high school in Warsaw, and took all the same classes together, became best friends, and then through the years did everything together. So we traveled, worked, studied together, and the time is on our side. We are still best friends happily at ElevenLabs. And across ElevenLabs, we are a company combining AI research and product on the mission to transform how we interact with the technology around us. What this means, we started initially with the first voice model that could sound human. So it could produce the intonation and emotions based on the context of the text and produce speech that you could enjoy and have almost those human-like qualities. We started that in 2022 with a team of us two. And then fast forward to today, 4 years later, we are 400 people. We continue on that research domain. So we built everything across audio space. So text-to-speech models, generating audio, speech-to-text models, understanding speech, orchestrating models of bringing that together. And we built products predominantly for helping the creatives to create marketing assets, narrative assets, and agents to help companies create voice agents. So for call centers, we work with Deutsche Telekom to help automate their work, all the way to Masterclass, where we help them create those interactive experiences with people like Gordon Ramsay, to government of Ukraine, helping them create the first agentic state. And in terms of scale, we are now at 330 million in revenue. We closed the year. Number divisible by 11, as you can feel, there's always the pattern, and we are excited to continue scaling and building.
Absolutely impressive. Within 3.5 years, yeah. Congrats. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's in my words, you've built the most realistic voice AI platform and many applications. And if you were to pick one kind of metric or metaphor, what best shows where you really are at the moment with the company?
I think there's the external one and internal one. External one, or like the metric that we frequently track, is both how many customers we've helped, and we have those two groups. We have self-serve customers. We have 5 million monthly active users using our products, and now 2,000 companies that rely on it across the world. And that's like one of the clear parts. But I think internally, and the metric that ultimately feels like the most important in the company is the team around and the people, and the 400 team members, and still like seeing that they have the same passion that they had in the early days and still keen to build. That's probably like the real validation, whether we all have fun in the long term, whether we can build that impact in the long term. So that's probably the one I track, whether the team is still there, but it's still the same set of passion as in the early days. And that's probably the highest proxy for me, whether we are on the right track.
I love it. Thanks. And Rafał, again, for those who don't know you that well, what do you actually build? Who relies on it, and why does it matter?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me, guys. Good morning. Many faces, I guess, familiar from yesterday, but I will pitch this again. So my name is Rafał Modrzewski. I'm the co-founder and CEO of ICEYE, and we build intelligence systems for governments. Primarily, the element that you care about is the small satellites that we launched into space. We have miniaturized the satellite technology. You can now launch not one or two, but tens or hundreds of those satellites, and they create and form a core of your intelligence system that allows you to observe what happens both within your borders, but probably more importantly, outside of your borders. And so you use this information today to actually know whether you're under threat or not when you're a nation state. So we are very much linked to defense and intelligence. You could call us one of the European defense tech companies, and very much in a scaling moment right now. The Ukrainian war has proven that tactical access to satellite technology is fundamental to quick and efficient decision making, and that's what we are trying to build for European nations today.
So I say the largest constellation of satellites monitoring Earth, yeah, regardless of weather conditions. Also many applications, but tell us a bit how it started.
Yeah, so it is indeed an interesting story, and I think it's somewhat comparable to Mati's, and you know, it sort of shows things that can start in Europe without any major sort of thing that would have to otherwise have happened. So we also started a university. A friend of mine, I haven't had a chance to know Pekka at high school. He was in high school in Finland. I was in high school in Poland, but we've met each other at the university in Finland. We were building a very small satellite, about a milk carton size, 3 kilograms. We've seen that the technology has dramatically changed versus what people used to do 10 years ago. And we've decided that since you are seeing a 10x shift in performance in small satellites and a 10x shift in the speed with which you can build them, there's going to be a ton of use cases that those new systems can serve. And we started with ice monitoring for the Arctic. The company is actually a bit much older. You know, we've generated first things in 2013, so that's how long back it goes. And back then, when you think of 2013, nobody was thinking defense tech. In fact, I remember back then, there were many funds in Europe that were not even allowed to invest in defense tech or dual-use technologies at large. So we weren't one. We were one focused on sustainability and climate change, and we focused on ice monitoring. And naturally, everything changed as the events around the world have evolved. But an interesting thing is that, you know, when we did start, it was generally perceived as an impossible feature to build small satellite like this. And we decided to try anyway, and in 2018, January, when we launched ICEYE X1, we were indeed the first company around the world to have done so. And today, I'm actually pretty glad to say and proud to say, and I think it's an important thing for people to remember, that it is a European company that actually holds the leadership when it comes to intelligence systems globally.
Great. And now directly into challenges and opportunities. I mean, you've broke through a lot of barriers building a global company, especially coming from an emerging market like Poland. So well done with that. And now you face, as a company on the market, a lot of other challenges. With AI moving at a crazy speed, topics like safety, trust, regulation, deep fakes. What feels, Matti, for you, like biggest challenge today that you believe may become an opportunity of tomorrow?
It's also interesting when Rafa was speaking about starting ICEYE, where kind of nobody built it in defense tech, and now it's one of the leading providers and the leading provider in Europe in that space, which is so incredible. I remember at the beginning of ElevenLabs, we had exactly the same problem, where now the questions are, of course, about how we think about AI innovation and how this will evolve. But when we started in 2022, this was still the year where metaverse was one of the key topics and crypto was one of the topics. So when we were mentioning AI, everybody was like, maybe you can combine this with crypto, it will be much more valuable, which we happily didn't. But fast forward to today, I think the safety part, so important one, as we work with the enterprises around the world. This is almost like kind of the dual element, which is also the advantage. All of our customers want the reliable systems, want the safety systems. They want to build a trust and brand with their customers. So we similarly lean into that and help build them that, whether that's the provenance of detecting whether the content is AI or not, whether it's moderation to detect whether the systems are abused, or whether that's surfacing a lot of the systems to tackle the open source elements. So that's definitely one of the key elements. And maybe the second one, I think the big question we have, and we don't know the answer fully yet, across the space is, do you need, as a company, so we today do a lot of the audio models for generating speech, understanding speech, but will the future be multimodal, where you combine all the models together? So you kind of create a one model to rule them all, which combines the text model, the LLM, the speech, the visual element. And that's an interesting one where that is frequently coming out from one of the bigger players. Gemini, OpenAI is building a lot in that space. However, those systems aren't reliable, and we see that as a good opportunity for us to help create a blended approach where you have that reliability with specific models while the other ones develop and become more reliable, so we can combine them over time. So staying focused on building the best for voice and elevating that quality is one. And maybe a flavor of that, which is coming across so well and is topical for Europe, and what we've seen as the advantage from the early days, is a lot of companies optimize for English, and happily we win on English too, but so few companies optimize for European languages, for Asian languages, and here we can actually have even bigger delta and quality to those companies around the world because our models are more generalized to those. We have more data, we annotate more data, we know how to build for those regions, and that has been an incredible advantage as we think about building in those regions. And it's partly because we started from our first models when we were testing were the Polish models, and they are pretty hard in terms of generating speech, but that gave us a good proxy that we can do all the other ones in an easy way.
Incredible. And I have a great example. I was actually driving here from Zurich to Davos with a Polish entrepreneur who runs an international company out of Zurich, and he told me a story about getting an advantage on the market using ElevenLabs to actually tap on different languages in Switzerland. You know, different cantons have different accents, different languages, and it enabled him, to do business, to win business, because each canton would be so focused on their own language. So, and they use ElevenLabs. Great story. And Rafał, moving to you, looking at today's world, you hear topics like geopolitics, defense, climate risk, security. Again, what feels like the biggest challenge for you today that you may turn into an opportunity of tomorrow?
Right. So I think it's very common that the same thing ultimately is a challenge and an opportunity, and the shifts in the geopolitical alliances are probably the most important one of those. Look, when we started, actually the first big defense customer of ours was the United States. In fact, InQtel, a fund that's started by the CIA and Department of Defense that very often invests early stage in dual use technologies, was our early investor. And we sort of have assumed that the United States is going to continue to be a very large market for us. Actually, back then, people believed that the United States is going to be the only market for defense tech capabilities like the ones we were building. And the fact that we were a European company was considered an issue. Now, nonetheless, we've thrived. We've managed to sell over there. We've got about 100 people over there in the States. But I do wonder about what is really going to be the future of that office and the future of that relationship with the customer. Now, the same is true for Europe. Being a European company, naturally, we have a much stronger position, and we today use that position to win business. We use that position to win business versus our American colleagues. Now, the question is going to be, how will this whole game play out outside of the United States and outside of Europe? I think we have a tendency a little bit to think that the European market and the US market is all the markets that exist over there. Many people over here that run international business know that there's actually a ton more today. There is India, there's a whole APAC, there's Africa that's coming up. Those markets are huge markets, and they're actually only going to grow in their importance. And I think what I really am watchful about is how sophisticated of a system of support for European companies does Europe have at large, or countries like Poland or Finland or the UK. Are they really able to help us compete in those international markets versus our US colleagues? I think this is really going to be important, because it seems that the alliance is not really going to last, at least for a period of time. There's going to be more tension over there, and I think that will lead to a stronger competition. So as much as one market is out, one market is in, and then the fight for the set of additional markets is definitely on.
Let's keep on that one. With you, Rafał. If you had one ask to business or political leaders in this room, or maybe you've already had an opportunity in Davos yesterday, about building and growing a business out of Europe, what would that ask be?
That's fair. So I will actually have two, but
please.
Look, I think we have spent a lot of time during Davos talking about the fact that the way we procure things, especially defense systems, is today broken. The way governments execute on their procurement is slow, is not agile. I was actually amazed. Yesterday I was in a panel in the Ukraine House, and the Ukrainian Minister of Defense was saying that nowadays they have a full new system of gamification of drone procurement. imagine that each different squadron that uses drones wins points as they execute on tasks. And at the end of the month, those points allow them to source new drones into their unit. So every month, they're actually much more efficiently selecting which drones are the best ones. Look, it takes us 2 years to buy things. This is the cycle, which is significantly too slow. So if I had one ask, let's unify the procurement across Europe. Let's make it truly a one market when it comes to defense and intelligence spending. Because if it's not a one market, if it's 27 markets, then we are actually shooting ourselves in the foot versus international competition. But when it comes to startups overall, because the defense and intelligence market is very much sort of my domain, I think, and I'm sure many people over here have already been thinking about this one way or the other, and this is true for Mati, both of our companies sooner or later probably will want to go to public markets, which is the famous IPO words. We are both raising money, we are raising a lot of money. Raising money in Europe still is harder because there isn't capital markets union, right? If I had one ask, which is true for all companies, not just ours, but actually all companies in Europe, then capital markets union is probably the next step.
I really love that we talk about startups, but at the same time, we comment on the businesses you've built that are size of a couple of €100 million in revenue, and you operate across many countries around the world, and at the same time you are thinking about IPO on the European and global level. I think we've progressed a lot as Poland and as the market, with you showing what's really possible. Mati, how about you? You've already come across many European and global leaders on the political side, the business side. We have many present here today with us. What would be your ask?
Yeah, I'm still thinking how I like to think that my week this week is a busy week, and I'm thinking about Rafał with everything on the geopolitics side, and I can imagine how busy is your side of the conversations of how to help with that independence and procurement process.
We can have a little bit, competition between the geopolitics, defense, security, and AI.
No, it's. All the asks that he made are definitely in my interest. So if we fulfill them, this is great already. I think the one from my side, which actually I would say is going in a good direction, when we started, it was interestingly very, very, very easy for us to bring our technology, bring our products to companies in the US, especially in Silicon Valley, and they were somewhat more risk forthcoming, where they were keen to, even when we're a small company, 5, 10, 20 people, they would still be happy to bet on us and try to test that technology in production, in systems, go through the proof of concepts together. And we, of course, tried in Europe, too, and working with the companies. And there was a high-risk aversion of clearing all the right certifications, going through a pretty lengthy process to get anything into proof of concept, yet alone production. And it took us probably 12 to 18 months. I think now it's changing a little bit. But it's still the truth that it's easier for us to deploy anything new in that region than it is in many others. And I mean it in all honesty. Today, it's changing a little bit where the companies across the CE region in Poland are keen to bet on that innovation and do it a little bit quicker. But my ask would be to go even quicker, work with not only us, but of course with a lot of the startups in the space. They need your help, your business help, your government help on when they are small, especially. That's when that matters the most, to give them the chance, give them a scoped project which maybe doesn't touch all the personal data, all the tricky data, but give them the chance to prove the worth, because that ultimately fuels that ecosystem of startups. And I think to US's benefit, they of course went through the cycle a few times when they've known that this is how the new companies are built. So they're also happy to bet on those companies. And similarly, we as a company will take that bet on new startups forming in the region. But my ask would be for many others here to take that bet, try to let them prove themselves. And if they do, then of course go for the larger commercial part. But I think this would be tremendous for the ecosystem.
Thank you for sharing. And we're here in Davos, and you're among just a few entrepreneurs out of Poland with a white label badge, with full access into World Economic Forum in main Davos. What are your insights? Any surprises, takeaways, or anything you can share with us? What you've experienced? And I understand it's also first time for you to have this full access, right?
Yeah, so look, I can say this is my fourth Davos, and indeed the first one with the white badge. So I was pretty excited myself. What is inside the hidden Congress Center, which you can never access? So I can share for sure. The food sucks. No better whatsoever than over here. Actually, there's almost none. But you do get a sense of the emotional state of what people are thinking about. I don't know how many of you guys have seen sort of this interrupted in the middle of the corridor interview yesterday with Gavin Newsom, who was commenting on the European posture. I think that was a really good one. I ended up accidentally jumping into the conference room where the Prime Minister of Canada was yesterday giving his speech, which also sort of had a bit of a ripple effect. I can tell that, I haven't been to the Congress Center last year or the year before, but this year there is quite a lot of tension. I think everybody is waiting for 3 p.m. today, not waiting for all the traffic, but actually waiting to hear what the big man is about to say. Look, I think it's a good place to get a sense of the world, but I actually think for everybody that's wondering over here whether that's critical for you to network successfully, I actually don't think so.
From my side, so this is my first Davos, and I don't have that relative scale. So as I compare it to what I expected, first I was very worried that the general Davos experience will be very transactional. I was a little bit skeptic of the whole thing, but it turned out that everybody's in the same boat, so you kind of skip that step, and you know that you can actually talk honestly and go straight to the point, which I think helped with entirety of the experience. For me, the most valuable is definitely meeting a lot of the companies that we would like to work with, and spending that one-on-one time. Maybe specifically on that kind of access points. So, first of all, Rafał is speaking today at 12:40, so do join if you can. I'm speaking tomorrow, so please join as well. But the thing that is surprising is that the kind of the density of people and the stark differences between people there are crazy. I was walking yesterday through the Congress Center, and there was the Gavin Newsom just before he gave that interview. So I saw him for a second. And then the next person I saw was will.i.am. And that was like the starkest of the differences and how they were thinking about that experience. But beyond that, and seeing that kind of density of those two words, I feel like there are almost like two conferences happening at the same time. There's like enterprise, Super Bowl, where everybody is here thinking about innovation, thinking how to kind of use that forcing function of everybody here being to maximum, while at the same time the geopolitics playing on in front of our eyes with surprisingly, me traveling here, of course, Greenland, and this being the first topic rather than Ukraine, which I hope will somehow change over the next few hours. But those feels like almost two huge topics happening at the same time, and I feel like in that Congress Center, that tension and that feeling is there too.
Thanks for sharing. I feel more aware of what's happening inside there, and I couldn't imagine better entrepreneurs and brands of Poland in there. You're talking about challenges, opportunities, but also representing Poland and Europe. And I'm wondering, how do you keep up, with the pace externally, with the pace in terms of competition? Also, I know you've been hiring. I mean, both of you. I think, ElevenLabs has been known recently of hiring in such a speed compared to nothing else. Like, how do you keep focus as a leader, as a founder, as an entrepreneur?
I think first it's a huge. I think very clearly the world is changing. AI shift might be bigger shift than the internet shift. So it's an extreme privilege to be building at a current time and age where, first of all, so much are changing, and we have an opportunity to lead on the voice agent side, on the conversational agent side, and we want to use that opportunity to the maximum. But the truth is, you need to listen to your customers. You need to grind. There is no no hour that you can lose to that opportunity. And if you are lucky, you have incredible team that's passionate, people around that support you. And so far, I think that's the common theme across our journey, that we have a huge element of great people around us that keep both cheering us on and helping us out. But I feel like that opportunity and that kind of grind needs to continue for the next few years before anything is set in stone. We can grow very quickly. It can also fall very quickly. So we'll use that to maximum.
Wow. And Rafał, I remember we spent a day in New York City, back-to-back meetings. It was a couple of months ago, including an interview at New York Stock Exchange. And I asked you, how do you keep up? How's your average day? And you say, yeah, this is like this. But at least I have you and we can chat along the day. How do you keep up and keep focused?
So look, this is definitely one of those sort of a bit more personal questions. So I'm happy to share. I think we've talked about this, and I've talked about it with Matti and some other founders. There are things that I find being somewhat in common, and there are definitely things that I don't find to be in common. So look, I'm definitely not one of the 5 a.m. club type of people. I will not wake up and go for 10-mile run first and then start the day. I wake up, throw the t-shirt and go. So that's probably unique to me, or at least specific. But what Matti has mentioned and what I have definitely found to be true is, look, you've got to have an enormous amount of passion for the problem you're solving, and that ultimately gives you a massive amount of energy. And that's number one, but I don't think the passion in itself would have been sufficient if it wasn't for the fantastic people that you're ultimately surrounding yourself with. I'm sure for you, and having Piotr around has been a massive help. For me, having Pekka around, although he's not always with me, we're actually very rarely traveling together. Having him has been a massive support. I know both of us have actually brought along with us the chief of staff, so it seems that this works well. So Tony, you're here in the first row. Thanks, Ben. Look, those people around you are ultimately the ones that sustain you in this grind, because as Matti said, the grind will continue.
And I feel I need to echo the sentiment. I have the lack of just going from meeting to meeting, but Franek behind the scenes here is making all of those meetings actually happen and arrange. So I agree. Without the chief of staff or person helping on the ground, it would be impossible. And yeah, I think picking the right founding team and ideally some version of complementary skill set is tremendous. I don't believe many people met Piotr, my co-founder here, but Piotr is special and the smartest person in the AI space I know, and that's why a lot of the models or the research can go into the direction, and it can. But beyond that and that kind of part, it's what Rafał said, where ultimately that's the person that you can rely on, speak about things you cannot speak with others. You can go through the hardest problems together. So that cushion is so valuable.
As we're summing up, I'm very proud and grateful to have you as Endeavor entrepreneurs. And I have to ask this and also share with you, because the thesis we have in Endeavor, and it's been present for almost 30 years all around the world, over 50 markets, is that in order to have Poland build global tech companies, we need first global tech entrepreneurs coming out of Poland, inspiring and then supporting and ultimately investing in the next generation of entrepreneurs. This is how the multiplier works. This is how we promote best practices. This is how we also inspire the next generation and make people believe it's actually possible nowadays to build a global tech company coming out of Poland, and it's possible to be in forefront of what's happening around the world, turning challenges into opportunities. Please share one thing, either from Endeavor and why Endeavor, or just an example of a support system that you've been part of, or your activity in supporting the next generation of entrepreneurs, because this is ultimately what we really need, and that's why I'm so grateful to have you involved, and probably the strongest brands of Polish tech entrepreneurship nowadays. Matti?
And I saw an ElevenLabs cap in the audience, so I'm very happy now. But I think from our perspective, the thing that, as you go through the stages, when it's early stage, I think that ecosystem is still already pretty good, where you have that support system. Then as you move from the early stage into slightly scale up stage or slightly more mature stage, then it becomes a little bit harder because there's fewer people that have seen the revenue scale from 10 to 100 or 100 to a billion in revenue, or people that kind of embraced and seen that across all parts of the functions, how to build the sales team, the growth team, what the RevOps function works and at that scale, at that time as well. And that's what we definitely missed. And of course, there are other developed markets or other startup markets where that function is good. So you can effectively, go for an event, go for a conversation, and there's multiple people that have seen the scale, and you can learn from them. And that kind of mentorship aspect of helping you skip doing the mistakes and actually learn that firsthand and learn from those people is just so much harder across Europe, across emerging markets, because fewer people have seen companies grow to 100 billion or trillion, of course, not yet, in evaluation. So that was what we missed, and both what we are looking for in the networks that we join, and hope what we'll provide over time back to the people and individuals, and what has been very, very helpful.
Thank you.
Look, I think the networks like the Endeavor networks are actually exceptionally important to exist in all markets. I know that the great thing about Endeavor is you're not just in Poland, you're actually in many countries. How many countries around the world? 50-ish. So it's that gives you an opportunity to access people not only within one country, but all around. Having a co-founder was one of the things that we have both mentioned as critical element, but we did actually at ICEYE, we're part of a similar network to the Endeavor in the early days, and it has been amazingly helpful. And it's actually helpful, very often you think that it needs to be helpful if you spend a lot of time, an hour a week, 5 hours a week. None of this was true. Actually, this network can be amazingly helpful if you get to ask 2 questions every 6 months to a person like Matti, and they will tell you, I remember I've spent 6 months trying to raise money in Europe until somebody like this told me, why don't you just go to the Bay Area and try to raise over there? And we were done within the next month. And so, I wish I had heard that advice a little bit earlier. And so it's those small nuggets of information that are really pure gold that you are going to get from people that have done that. I think, Bartek, I know that you've been shaping up this network in Poland, and I wanted to say that it's a great thing that you guys have not only that you've reached out to founders which are Polish but don't always build companies specifically out of any of the Polish cities as such. And I think, look, the world is a very much of a one big place where we mix around. It's a bit of a global village, especially when it comes to building companies. You land in different places, and it would be very harsh to just stick to one geographical location. I actually think that looking at this from a Polish perspective is the more we embrace the European founder ecosystem as our ecosystem, the better off we're going to be.
Thank you very much. Again, I think I could not imagine better discussion at Davos about Poland, about Europe, about challenges and opportunities, and also thank you for being such strong, powerful, and energetic brands of Poland. I would say Polish heritage, European heart, and global talent. Matti Staniszewski, co-founder, CEO, ElevenLabs, and Rafał Modrzewski, co-founder and CEO of ICEYE. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.